Hello folks, this is Jacob Harkey. It is June 4th, 2024, and I am currently sitting in front of the Los Angeles City Hall in Los Angeles, California. I am across the street from the Grand Park, which is right next to the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center, right there. So many of you have probably seen me in this general area before, whether it was for protests or for post-court hearing recaps. But in any case, it's good to see those of you who are in here. I mentioned in a stream, which I did earlier today, which some of you may have seen, that today's scheduled hearing in the Jane Doe v. Religious Technology Center case was continued until July 16th, but I still took a little bit of time to talk a little bit about recent developments in that case and recent developments in another case. I mentioned at the end of the video that a new Palestine Solidarity encampment had recently popped up on the steps of the LA City Hall. That's where I'm at right now. I realized after walking over to this part of the Grand Park, I checked on some of the activist accounts who posted about the encampment yesterday, and I'm thinking of accounts like People's City Council, where it was pointed out that LAPD cleared the encampment yesterday. And as I understand, Jessica Palmadessa was here for a little bit yesterday documenting some of what was going down last night. I wasn't able to be here. I would have been here if I could have been. I expected that I would be coming over following the court hearings this morning to stand in solidarity with fellow activists, but as I said, I didn't realize until after the court hearings that the encampment has already been cleared by cops. Nevertheless, because it's been a few weeks since I have talked about Palestine at length on my channel, but the crisis continues to unfold, I did want to take a little moment to remind folks that it's still free Palestine, but I also wanted to talk just a little bit generally about encampments as a form of protest, because for those of you who are tuning in as watchers of SPTV and watchers of the Scientology protests that have been happening in Los Angeles and in other locations, many of you will probably know that DOA has organized an encampment right in front of the Big Blue building. So I want to take a moment to remind folks why it is that we are calling for a free Palestine, as well as what that means. And then also to just talk a little bit more generally about encampments and what encampments have accomplished in the past and what they can accomplish in the future. So, when rallying for a free Palestine, I think that it is very important, in order to understand what it is that we are calling for, one concept that you must understand is the concept of Zionism. And I've got my shirt on today which says "Unity in Confronting Zionism." Zionism is the belief that all of the land between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River, which is currently commonly known as Israel, recognized throughout the world as Israel, belongs exclusively to Jewish people, should be inhabited exclusively by Jewish people, and the establishment of a Jewish state is necessary in securing these goals and in achieving these goals. Prior to 1948, Zionism was the belief that a Jewish state should be established in Palestine, which was a predominantly Arab country. In 1948, the State of Israel was formally established, and since 1948, Zionism has yearned for the continued defense and security of the State of Israel, which has come at the expense of the lives and well-beings of the Palestinian people. Because the goals of Zionism cannot be achieved without the mass relocation of the Palestinian people, the mass imprisonment of the Palestinian people, or the mass execution of the Palestinian people. In other words, the goals of Zionism cannot be achieved without committing genocide against the Palestinian people. Since 1948, the Palestinian people have regularly faced horrible oppression. And since October 7th, the Palestinians who are specifically living in Gaza, those conditions have reached an previously unprecedented level even in that area. So, over the last several months, folks have been regularly taken to the streets in Los Angeles as well as in other large cities across the country and across the globe in order to confront Zionism and rally for a free Palestine and stand in solidarity with Palestinian liberation. Now, in April of this year, those protests, after months of peaceful protesting all across the country, while they did put many eyes on Palestine and they did give many an opportunity to speak up and use their voices, it's hard to point to anything concrete that changed about the situation in Palestine due to the protests. So, in April, protests began to escalate in the form of Palestine solidarity encampments on college campuses. If you were watching this channel, you may have seen me visit and stand in solidarity with encampments at UCLA and USC. Many other schools had encampments which made big headlines in the press, notably Columbia University, which is where a lot of this started. But in thinking about what was effective about the encampments and what has been effective about similar encampments at universities in the past, the demands that were being made at many of the protests prior to the establishment of these encampments included an end to the siege on Gaza, a return of all hostages and political prisoners, and free Palestine, and decolonization of that land. Now, in addition to those demands, the Palestine solidarity encampments on college campuses made additional demands involving divestment away from either defense manufacturers or weapons manufacturers who are manufacturing weapons, which are aiding Israel in carrying out their genocide, as well as an academic boycott of partnerships with Israeli universities. So, after a few weeks, some encampments have been cleared. Some encampments have stayed up and are still up and going. And if you are living in a city or living near an encampment, I would strongly encourage you, if you are able, to do what you can to support the encampment. Now, many local universities, many universities across the nation and across the world have SJP chapters. SJP is Students for Justice in Palestine. And Students for Justice in Palestine, these tend to be the organizations that are leading the charge in organizing and maintaining Palestine solidarity encampments, as well as other Palestine actions, Palestine-related action that people can take, whether or not they are students. Another similar group is the Palestinian Youth Movement. Much of the information that I have received about local protests has been from the Palestinian Youth Movement, and specifically the Los Angeles, Orange County, and Inland Empire chapter. And they can be reached by going to PYMLAOCIE on Instagram. I've missed attending protests and documenting them as best I can while chanting and rallying in solidarity with other activists who are making similar demands. And if you have seen recent posts on my community page, which I won't get into great detail about at this time, you'll know why I have taken a bit of a step back. But regardless of having taken a few weeks off from streaming myself at pro-Palestine protests, I wanted to pop on and remind you all that it's still free Palestine. Now, to shift gears just a little bit and talk a little bit more generally about encampments as a form of protest. Right now, our friend Scotty, Defender of Ants, DOA, has organized a He's organized an encampment on Fountain Avenue right in front of Big Blue, Scientology's Big Blue building. And for the first 9 days of June, the Church of Scientology has L. Ron Hubbard Way permitted off for their Children's Fest, which is really a big recruiting tactic and PR tactic that they are employing. Now, there's been lots of protesting happening in the Los Angeles area over the last several months. First with Eat Predators protests, which happened in September of 2023 at Big Blue, as well as in October of 2023 at Celebrity Center. And then since then, independently of Eat Predators, we have seen Jessica Palmadessa, William Good, and many other protesters, many other content creators take to protesting outside of the testing center on Hollywood Boulevard, take to protesting outside of Big Blue, protesting in front of La Poubelle. And now, because we are no longer allowed on L. Ron Hubbard Way, at least for these first 9 days of June, DOA has got an encampment going where there are tents set up to house local unhoused people. There are grills set up to prepare food. And considering what encampments have accomplished in the past in movements like the Vietnam War protests and the protests against apartheid in South Africa in the 80s, which had a very similar tone to the recent Palestine Solidarity encampments in that they were student-led movements on college campuses making demands that were contrary to the interests of the state. I think it'll be very interesting to see what comes of the Scientology encampment on Big Blue. I do have a bit of sun in my eyes, but I want to go back and check in with some folks who are in the chat before I can hopefully make my way over to the encampment that DOA's got set up before long. And hello to folks who are in the chat. Hi Cardi, hi Quiet Lion, hi SP from afar, hi Mandy, hey Lexi. I did believe, oh yes, and thank you for clarifying, Windy City Thetan Watch, Columbia and New York City, that is right. Hey Jen, hey Riley. I see that Drew Barrymore Simps said DOA needs help really bad. If anyone knows someone that can help with the encampment, he's asking for someone to step up, especially at night. They have no one to watch over things as of right now. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for amplifying that message. I am going to head on over to Big Blue very shortly so that I can join up with other folks and do what I can to support the encampment as best I can. And I see Haggis Basher says NT is looking for someone to help source water. Thank you for letting me know. I will see what I can do. I may be able to stop somewhere nearby to pick up some bottles of water before I head on over there. Thanks for sharing. Hey Dusty, good to see you in here. All right, folks. Thanks again to everybody who has tuned on in. Oh, I also do see Drew Barrymore Simp points out women's rights in the 60s, 70s, lots of encampments. Look, now we can vote and have our own bank account. Yeah, it wasn't until Ruth Bader Ginsburg died that I realized that women were not able to have their own bank accounts without being married until, if I'm not mistaken, it was the 1970s. And that goes to show you another good example. In addition to Vietnam War protests, in addition to anti-apartheid protests, the women's right movement is another example of a movement which did a great job of employing the use of encampments as a protest technique in order to get their demands met. Allison says encampment is going strong but need help. Michelle says they have plenty of bottled water. Well, I will head by and see what I can do. See what I can do to provide support as best I can. Thank you to everybody who has tuned into the live chat, and thank you to everybody who is watching on the replay, and I will talk to you all very soon. All right, stay safe everybody. I'll see you all again very shortly.